Hi, I'm Joe from School of Rock North Buffalo. When we're not making musicians, we're also fixing gear. So if you have a guitar or bass in need of love, if you need new strings, please bring it in. We'll be more than happy to help you. So not only do we do instruction and performance-based music, we also fix gear. So please bring it down to 9310 Treds Road, East Amherst, or you can give me a call at 716-317-7625. Again, School of Rock North Buffalo. We make musicians and we fix your gear.
On this episode, Canada's rock queen, Leigh-Erin.
Okay, today we have with us one of Canada's most iconic vocalists. He's also a songwriter, producer, and a fearless reinventor. She began singing in musical at the age of 5, and at 15 she joined a local rock band. She recorded her debut album, Leigh-Erin Project, in 82, and in 84, the album Metal Queen resulted in a multi-album deal with Attic Records. Since then, she's released 15 albums, including Tattoo Me in 2024. It is my pleasure to welcome Leigh-Erin to the show. Hello, Lee.
Hey, how you doing? It's a pleasure to be here.
Definitely appreciate it. Yeah. So your vocals and music have been such a wide artistic range and diversity, but Metal Queen kind of overshadowed all that for a long time, correct?
Well, Metal Queen was my sophomore release, my second album, and it's interesting because I'm working on a book of memoirs right now, and I'm just getting to the point of writing and recording that. And the cool thing about that album is it was rather unadulterated by outside producers and things like that. It was pretty much just me and George Bernhardt, the band, and John Albany writing that album. And then we went into Phase One Studios and just recorded it pretty much as the songs were, with this kind of very young Spitfire energy, take on the world kind of energy that we had at that time. And Paul Gross, who was the producer on that album, did a fantastic job. Pyromania by Def Leppard had just come out, and I think we spent an inordinate amount of time in the studio just trying to, how do we get that Mutt Lange snare sound, right? It was because it was the thing at the time, right?
Very much so, yeah.
But the cool thing about that record is, and again, as I'm revisiting this in my memories and writing about it, is it was outside of body rock, probably one of the only albums that I did when I was young that didn't have a lot of outside sort of cooks messing with stuff, right? So the thing about that album, and also about body rock, which was another big record for me, is I think it had a purity of spirit about it, and I think that's maybe what made such a connection with people, if that makes sense. And I had zero expectations, because at that time, my first album had done okay, but I was, touring all those divey little clubs all across Canada at the time.
Right.
We all cut our teeth on that circuit. And I don't know if I had any really great expectations for Metal Queen, but surprisingly, it garnered the attention of a lot of European press, and resulted in foreign licensing deals in many places. And so we all of a sudden we had distribution around the world, and and of course MTV and Much Music were in their infancy at that time.
Right.
And we did this kind of superhero cool video.
Right,
and,
you had to have a cool video back then. It might have been, nowadays it looks a little cheesy, but you had to have one now.
Exactly. I mean, by today's standards with CGI, it's completely cheesy, but at the time, it was pretty cutting edge for,
Right.
technologically for its time. And I just really didn't have, again, expectations in it. But somehow I found myself sort of catapulted to this kind of like iconic status with hard rock fans around the world. And it was just like, wait a minute, what just happened here, right?
Yeah, metal fans are very, very loyal, as you've come to find out, especially in Europe and UK and things like that. Yeah, when they latch onto that song and that imagery, that that holds, unfortunately, for a little too long. You started to reinvent yourself, and we talked a little bit about that. In '87, you did the Lee Aaron album. You did I think Power Lines that came out, a little more poppy. And then in '89, you did Body Rock, which went multi-platinum. Was voted, one of the 20 most influential albums of the decade by Chart Magazine. Very, very cool stuff. And they also wrote about you that, artists such as Avril Lavigne, Alanis Morissette, and Shania Twain are kind of under Lee Aaron's influence. So they're all looking at you a little bit back then.
Well, I mean, that was a really flattering article in Chart Magazine. I'd never really thought about it. And of course, here we are 25 years past that.
Right.
That it was 2000 where they said that was one of the most influential albums of the 80s. In more recent interviews that I've done with a lot of journalists, it's hitting home a little more for me now that my impact on women in rock at the time was fairly significant. I again, at the time I was in it and involved in it, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just like, what is the next hurdle? What is the next hurdle I have to jump over? Because the 80s were an extremely challenging decade for women, and especially women the 80s alone was sexist, but the genre of hard rock, it was kind of like over the top. The expectations were, if you're a woman in rock, you get out there, you look great, you sing great, you wear lingerie on stage, and if a record company exec comes backstage and slaps you on the ass, you're supposed to take it as a compliment. And it's like, by today's standards, it's like, holy crap, that is so not acceptable. But it was a very odd decade for sexism, and women have had infinite challenges in the last, century to overcome in terms of having their voice heard, and women couldn't vote, for the longest time. And so I'm now starting to, look back and really understand that, wow, we did have a lot of hurdles to overcome and challenges. And, I know the girls in Heart who are, more than a decade older than me, they were hugely influential for me. But Nancy and Ann have talked a lot about that as well. The fact that there were so many barriers to sort of bust through. And, but I have no regrets. I have no, my feelings around that were just that, we just looked at it like, it's just, there's another obstacle to try to, another wall to try to break through. What do I need to do to do that? And, in the infancy stages of my career, the very early days, I think I made some compromises I wasn't all that happy about. But by, the mid 80s, I was working at rectifying that, and meaning that, I wore shorter shorts than I maybe really wanted to in the beginning, because there were just, so many hands in the pie and so many cooks. And it was also a time where, your record company truly was your investor. They were like, hey, we're throwing $500,000 at you.
Right. So this is how we want to market it. This is how we want it to look. And you were talking about the girls from Heart. They've mentioned that, from their 80s look and style with their clothes and their style. They didn't want that at all. They didn't want to come out looking like that. But it stole, you know what I mean? But they didn't want to have that at all either.
Well, it's strange. We don't talk about it now. But a lot of artists, did odd things to survive through the 80s. And, even the Rolling Stones did, albums, a couple of albums that were a little more, synthy oriented, disco even oriented. And Neil Young did a sort of like a weird synth record. And,
Right.
So it was just a very strange decade. And I think the thing that made it bizarre was the fact that the music industry had really come into its own. And there was, record executives were like movie moguls. There was so much money to be made in the 80s. So, whenever there's a lot of money involved and corporate hands in the pie, things just get weird. It was just like, we have a lot to say about how you're going to be marketed because we are pumping this much money into it. And, with all due respect, I worked with some amazing people, but a lot of the suits just didn't really, they didn't, it's not, you're wearing a suit, you're not the artist, right? And I think a lot of us felt boxed into corners that we didn't really feel comfortable with sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally understand that, definitely. And you went into a couple, different directions with your music. And in 2000, you released Slick Chick, an album with jazz standards, which was really cool departure for you there. Very, very cool stuff with that. And in 2004, you had Beautiful Thing, which is kind of a mixture of jazz, blues, and rock. A little bit of everything going on.
Yeah, well, so no secret. Pretty much every artist that had a career in classic rock / the hair metal look of the 80s. And I'm reluctant to even say hair metal because it sounds so reductive because there were some really talented people.
Right. There's so many bands that don't even want that mentioned in their name anymore. Like,
I don't mean that to sound reductive, but I'm just trying to paint a picture here of how the media looked at it. And then once like Soundgarden and Nirvana and Green Day and Pearl Jam and had, overtaken the radio airwaves, if you were associated even remotely with that genre of music, your career was dead. You were
done. Yeah, nobody wanted to hear anything new from you. You were painting with that brush. You were done.
You couldn't get arrested. So, and at that time by 1996, I had done a couple of albums I did Some Girls Do. I did put out a best of in, I think, 92 or 93. Then I did Too Precious in 95. No, I did Emotional Rain. Sorry, Emotional Rain. Emotional Rain had a lot of almost.
Too Precious was 96, I think, right?
Emotional Rain, pardon me?
I think Too Precious was 96, maybe?
Yeah, so Emotional Rain was 94. And I had Reeves Gabrel from David Bowie's Tin Machine. I had Knox Chandler from Psychedelic Furs. When I was making that record and writing for that album, I think I was still only about in my 20s, 29 years old. And I was kind of like feeling like, I love this style of music. This is amazing. And why can't my career just embrace some of these sounds and continue forward? But it was just way too hard. I did a lot of really great work in the 90s. I continued to make records. I did the Too Precious album, which was me partnering with an alt band from the West Coast, the Sons of Freedom. But I just couldn't get the media and the industry support because, again, they were just like, oh, no, Lee Aaron, sorry, you're hair metal, you're classic rock from the 80s and, you're not part of the new sound, so we're not allowing you. There were too many gatekeepers at that point in time that just wouldn't allow you to move forward with the trend at that time. So by 96, I had to go bankrupt. And then I spent a year kind of at home, woodshedding, licking my wounds. And I was listening to a lot of my favorite old jazz and blues albums. Love Nina Simone. Oh, yeah. And a friend of mine said, why don't you just go sing that stuff? You'll love it. Because I didn't want to give up singing. I didn't want to give up being an artist. that was my passion. It's what I did. It was my life, right? And so I started around Vancouver, the Vancouver area, just with a piano player, just going and singing in a few lounges locally, just doing jazz and blues. And within a few months of doing that, it suddenly, like the Sun newspaper, everybody, it's like, oh, look what Lee Aaron's doing now. And it garnered quite a bit of media attention. And the reviews were all super positive because for me, it was really going back to my roots. I did a lot. I grew up singing jazz and blues and theater songs, a lot of that stuff when I was really young. And so most of the reviews were saying, wow, this is quite authentic and she's quite good at it. And so I thought, well, maybe I should make a record, And that's how, Slick Chick and Beautiful Things came about. And so it was just a departure for me artistically, but a very, very welcome departure. Like I feel that those years singing jazz and blues, like I went to Europe on jazz festivals. I went all across Canada doing jazz festivals. It was a really enjoyable time. And the wonderful thing about jazz and blues music is that, and I've said this before, rock fans kind of want to hear albums presented verbatim the way they hear them on record, and jazz and blues is completely different. There's so much room for improvisation every night. You don't play those songs the same way. And it was just, in some ways, I just feel like it made me a far more kick-ass singer and artist because you really have to, it's a heads-up gig. You have to think on your feet. And to me, that's what art's all about, right? And so I really, really enjoyed that departure in my life, in my career.
Yeah, definitely some awesome tracks there, and it just sounded great, the stuff you're calling out with. And then in 2007, I was reading, you got invited to perform with Hard at Thunder Bay's Rock Fest Festival.
I did. It's funny because I hadn't gone out and done my rock show in quite a few years. And I had a West Coast agent that kept bugging me to go back out and do it. And when I had the opportunity to perform on the same stage as Hart, I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, this is worth it. I have to do this, like an opportunity to play with my heroes, So I cobbled my rock band back together, and I went out and did it, and it was just such an amazing experience. And I got to meet Ann and Nancy, and I had a wonderful conversation with Nancy backstage. Mostly we talked about our kids. How do you manage motherhood? And that subsequently ended up in me writing an article. I've written a couple of articles for Canadian Billboard, and I wrote a whole article about meeting her and talking about being a mother and how to balance motherhood and rock and roll. And so that was just a very, very amazing and memorable experience for me.
Yeah, and I was also reading you got approached by, I think, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister to be part of a Vegas review with Stephen Piercy of Rat also. So it kind of sounded like an 80s rock review he was trying to put together at that time.
Yeah, that was through my management company. I never talked to Dee personally. And I have to be honest, I don't really remember exactly when that was and exactly what the details were, but I know I had other things going on at that time and felt as though that was not something I was able to take on at the time, so I ended up not doing it, but I'm super flattered to be asked, for sure. Oh yeah, definitely. So kind of almost brings us up to date. So last year you released Tattoo Me with a new title track and some classic rock covers on there, Even It Up by Heart, and Someone Saved My Life Tonight from Elton John, which I thought were both, great picks for that. Sounding great for sure. So between 2016 and now, I've done 7 new albums with my band. Since Sean Kelly joined the fold in 2016, he's the new permanent guitar player for Lee Aaron. And we've done quite a few original albums, but in 2024, we had again already done 6 new albums, and we were like, what can we do now that would be different? And I thought, I have never done a full album of cover songs. So many artists do that. What, it would be so cool to do that. And so, yeah, we spent a few months curating the tracks, deciding what we wanted to do. It sort of started out as an album where we thought, let's do all the artists that really influenced us, like Zeppelin and like Heart. But the more we had these conversations, the more we realized, well, none of us stopped being influenced by music, in like 1982. So that is why the album spans like about 3 decades, because we're doing stuff from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So 4 decades, really. Because we're all such big music fans. I'm a super fangirl, and we just continue to be influenced by music. I now have a 19-year-old son, and he's constantly turning me on to stuff. It's like I started listening to Royal Blood and Typo Negative and things that I didn't listen to 20 years ago, but I'm continually being influenced by. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always cool to see the younger generation when they start to tap into their own music, and you can kind of follow that along and see what influences them. I was lucky enough to experience that with my kids as well, but always, show them the path of where things came from. Here's the Beatles material. Here's Led Zeppelin. Take a look at this. If you don't like it, that's fine, but this is the beginning. So you go from there.
100%. Well, it's cool because he likes a lot of 80s stuff as well, but he's constantly going, hey, have you heard of this band, Mom? Listen to this. And I'm like, no, hey, that's pretty cool. Do you know who I just saw last Sunday here in Vancouver, whom I wasn't traditionally a huge fan of, but my husband is a huge fan? An unbelievable live show. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Holy moly, were they good. Like, what a show. So again, like, I'm a fan now because I, continually being influenced by stuff. So, yeah.
Always new cool stuff coming out. And you have some stuff coming out right now that we want to talk about, obviously. The 40th anniversary of Metal Queen. Tell us about this package, what's going on. This sounds amazing for Lee Aaron fans.
Yeah, so the 40th anniversary actually was last year, but we had some issues with suppliers and getting original product because we wanted to sell the fan pack with pressings that were from the original masters, which we could only get from my distributor Unidisc. So but yeah, I got this great amazing package right now. So it's the 40th anniversary package of Metal Queen. It comes with a t-shirt which has this image that's up on your site right now, cool t-shirt, an autographed poster, a 9 postcard pack which has original photographs from the 80s. It's all me looking very 80s, but original postcard pack, a Lee Aaron guitar pick, a reusable tote bag, which is very, very cool for shopping. And you have the option to order it with an original CD or the pink re-release album, which also comes with one of the original posters inside. So 2 posters. So it's pretty comprehensive fan pack, and it's available now at my merchandiser, Rock Paper Merch. Just look that up online or go to my official merch that you can connect with on my website, and it takes you there. And yeah, it's a super cool fan pack. Yeah,
definitely. I was reading through it here. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in here. Like, certain autograph posts. I'm like, wow, this is definitely the deluxe fan pack. And like Lee was saying about rockpapermerch.com/collection/Lee Aaron, you can pick that up there. Definitely very great. So in our minds here leaves no doubt that Canada's Rock Queen is back better than ever. But if you don't know it, you need to go and check her out on the show she's got coming up here. So first one we see May 22nd. 2025, we're in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. It's a Classic Bowl, I think, going on, right?
So yeah, there's this amazing friend we have in Toronto. His name is Ed Souza. He owns a city block, and when he bought it, there's this bowling alley, and he has mounted the biggest indoor festival in North America. And it's a 3-day thing he does every year. And we are so honored to be playing there on the Thursday night. It's going to be an incredible show. We're there with our friends Haywire, The Box, and The Spoons. So it's a multi-band festival, goes on for 3 days. We are there May 22nd. And and proceeds go to Ronald McDonald House. So it's also a very good cause. So we're super excited, super stoked. It's in the GTA, the Toronto area, Greater Toronto area, and so all our Southern Ontario fans, you got to make it out to this one.
Yeah, that one definitely sounds cool. 8th annual Mick Bowl concert series going on. Very, very cool. And then the 23rd, you're at Burnstown, Ontario, Canada. Neat Coffee Shop is another date for that. And then June 6th, you're in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. What's that? Transcona High Neighbor Festival, I think it says here.
So, Transcona is in the greater Winnipeg area. And it's very personal for me because I actually grew up in Transcona when I was a little girl. So they're bringing us in for their annual High Neighbor Festival, which is very exciting. The Neat Cafe that you were talking about is in the Ottawa area. Unfortunately, it's already sold out, but that is, they bring recording acts in. It's an intimate, interactive show and with extremely limited expensive seating, but unfortunately there's no more tickets left for that. It's already sold out. And then June 25th, we were in the Calgary area at the Parkland Festival. So yeah, we got a bunch of dates coming up this summer, but those are the ones that are in the more immediate future. So if you are in Canada and you're near one of those major cities, hopefully you can make it out.
Yeah, definitely. You can check out those dates on Lee's website. Very, very cool. And maybe in the future, you guys will maybe put some dates in states. That would be great. Otherwise, it looks like I'm making the trek to Canada here at some point.
Yep.
These shows out, but that's what I got to do. I was talking to Rick Emmett about it. I'm like, are you going to do any signings or anything out here in the U.S.? He's like, with the things going on in the U.S., probably not. I'm like, okay, I understand.
Yeah, it's a little dicey right now. Again, I don't really have an opinion either way. I know I have fans that are both red and blue, so on both sides of the fence. I don't want to alienate anybody, but
Sure.
Some of your leaders' actions have been perceived as a little bit negative towards his relationship with Canada. So I think Canada right now, people have a little bit mixed feelings about coming through to the States, but I mean, I love my American neighbors. That's what I can say. I love my fans, and I love the people down there. My husband and I used to own property in the States and be down there visiting all the time. Hopefully things will get smoothed over soon. And because I miss my American friends. I really do.
Yeah, it would be great to see some shows out here. And I can remember back in the day with the Canadian radio stations we pick up out here. Here in Metal Queen, come through for the first time and have you on all the different stations out there. It's just outstanding. But yeah, definitely this pack you got coming out here, this deluxe package, the Metal Queen 40th anniversary, folks, check it out. It is some really, really cool stuff. And definitely catch Lee where you can with these dates for sure. All right. So that wraps up this episode of Talk About Rock. Thank you to my guest today, the amazing Lee Aaron, for being with us. And shout out to our sponsors, School of Rock North Buffalo and Unleashed Music. And to our listeners, we hope you're doing your part out there to keep the torch alive and support live music wherever you are.